Hello, this is the screencast of my Desmos artwork. So I decided to create a turkey because Thanksgiving is coming up next week. I used exponentials and quadratics with restricted domains to make the feathers. I used lines to create the hat. I also used circles to create the body, and as well as just lines all around to create the rest of it. So I'm going to show you how to create the eyes because that included conics as well as restricted domain to make the eyes so that they don't overlap, as well as inequalities to create the shading in the pupil. So first I'm going to start with the outline of the eyes. So I want the eyes to go somewhere up here. So if we look at where that point would be, the center of the circle, it's going to be at about 0.5 and then 10.5. So I'm going to put the eyes on either side of this line, with the center being at 0.5, 10.5, and negative 0.5, 10.5. So over here I'm going to type in my equation of the circle. So the x value was 0.5. And then the y value was 10.5. Oops. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the radius at about, we'll try 0.5 and see how that works. Okay, that's a little big, so I'm going to try a little bit less. Okay, so that's about right. But I don't want the eye to go over the middle, so I'm going to make a restricted domain on this one that it has to be greater than 0. So x is greater than 0. Okay, then I'm going to add the other eye. So again, it was about x plus 0.5 squared this time, plus y minus 10.5 squared. And then I want the same shape, so I'm going to use the same radius. And then I also, again, don't want it to overlap, so I'm going to restrict my domain to x is less than 0 this time. And I want to make these black, so I'm going to change the color for both of these to be black for the outline of the eyes. Okay, so that's the outline, and I'm going to add the pupils, and I'm going to make the pupils with a slider so that they can get enlarged. So I'm going to add an expression, and for the pupils, I still want the same center as I had before, so I'm going to use the same center. And for this one, I'm not going to use the same radius. I'm going to make it r. And I also want them to be filled in. So I'm going to make the equation less than or equal to r. We're going to add slider r. Okay, but I don't want the pupil to be bigger than the eye, so I'm going to change my slider so that it can only get as big, and then it disappears if it's smaller than 0. So I'm also going to make it bigger than 0. So I'm going to change my range here. And I'm going to change it to something pretty small so that I can still see it. And then it has to be less than this radius. So let's see, 3? About 3? And I'm not going to add any steps for this one. Let's see. Oh, that's still too big. So I'm going to change this to 0.3. Because I think it has to be less than this one up here. Yeah, so that works. All right, so there's my pupil on one of them with a slider. I'm going to also make this black for the pupil. you can change it. And then I'm also going to add one for the other one. So the same thing, I'm going to add the other one. Oops, and I want it in the eyes column. So I organized these by each body part, so it was easy to see which equations went with what. So I'm going to add my other one, x minus 0.5 squared plus y minus 10.5 squared. And then same radius, so 0.4. So the radius is 0.2 because with the circle it's r squared. And then I am going to add my slider, sorry, so it's actually r. And I also want it to be filled in, so it's going to be less than or equal to instead. And I'm going to use the same r so that they go at the same time. So when I move this, they'll be getting smaller and bigger at the same time when I move my r, because they have the same r value. Okay, so that's it for the screencast. I also wanted to show you that I added with the nose, I also added a slider to move, make it bigger or smaller, and then make it a big nose or a small nose for the turkey. So each one is organized by each body part, so you can look through the equations here for each one. This part did take me a while, so that's why I didn't really want to show each part on the screencast, because there are so many equations. That's why I just did the eyes, because it included the conics, it included a slider, and then it also included the shading for the inequalities. Okay, so that's it for my turkey art. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Happy holidays.